Well, hello, I'm Michael Nabors, and I serve as pastor of Second Baptist Church in Evanston and also president of the Evanston North Shore National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It is my delight to be able to share with the Evanston community and beyond a couple of wonderful, amazing people who are in Evanston, Chuck Lewis and Rue Simmons. We're grateful that you are here with us today, a part of this burgeoning and blossoming Evanston community that is doing so much, even in the midst of a pandemic. I would like for the community to get to know you both a little better. I know that you're household names in Evanston and that you've already blazed a trail in your own respective careers, but I would like to get to know you a little bit better. And Chuck, I think I'm going to start with you, and I'd like to briefly just ask a couple of questions. Who you are, and where did you grow up, and what brought you into the Evanston community?
You started with age before beauty. Appropriately. Being deferential to your elders. I was born and raised in the East, went to school in the East. Came to Evanston in 1969, so more than 50 years ago now. And have stayed in Evanston because of I've come to like the idea of its, even before people were using the word, its commitment to equity, which is now on full display. Yes. So that's why we've stayed here and moved around to different houses. This hopefully is the last house. I was a longtime investment banker at Merrill Lynch, and about 25 years ago, started our family foundation. And about a year ago, our daughter Casey Lewis Varela joined me and joined Penny Sebring, my wife, and I, working with the foundation.
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that. And especially we have a connection that we learned about just a little while ago about the East. And that is that you were born and raised in the Trenton-Princeton community where I spent 17 years. So, Robin, I think I'm going to ask the same thing. And of course, we have a connection as well in terms of Detroit. But I'd like to know about you, a little bit about your background and where you were born and raised and what brings us to this point today.
I am really proud that I was born and raised in Evanston in the 5th Ward, where I currently live today and served as alderman. I'm a recently retired alderman, and I am working full-time now as the founder and executive director of FirstRepair. But my entire adult life, I've been an entrepreneur, mostly related to real estate. I currently still own some residential and commercial real estate here in town. And I returned to Evanston about 20 years ago now to raise my children. So I was gone for about 10 years, in Detroit for 5 years, and I returned so that I could raise my children here. I had a very good childhood experience here as it relates to a true worldview, equity and diversity, and I had some access to a good education system. But more importantly, I had an important village. The village of the 5th Ward is who raised me, along with my family, of course. And I wanted to share that experience with my children, that I didn't see an opportunity in the community I was living in the Detroit area.
Thank you, Robin. What I find interesting about both of your stories is the connection to Evanston. For Chuck coming here 50 years ago and finding something about the community that was nurturing and that was wonderful, that made you want to be here to raise your family. And Robin, for you being gone 10 years and then deciding this is where I want to come back and raise my family as well. So I love the connection. What I'd like to know is, how in the world did you both meet? What brought you together, and in particular under the umbrella of reparations? What is it about that particular subject, and what is it about this community that brought you both together? I'll ask Robin first, since I started with Chuck last time.
Okay. Before reparations, of course, I was familiar with Mr. Lewis, Chuck, who he tells me to call him Chuck, but I was familiar with Chuck from his contributions to the community, in his philanthropic work and his other commitments to very important causes and organizations here in town. So I had some reference. And at some point, about a year ago now, Mr. Lewis and Casey, who I also worked with at while she was at YOU, they reached out to me really just to learn more about what we were doing with reparations, what my role had been, what the city's commitment was, what the vision was for reparations. And that's been over a year ago now, and we've continued to build on that relationship since that time in a really important way.
That's great. I'm going to do a quick follow-up question and ask Robin, in your years in the office as an alderman, did you get out of that position what you were looking for?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. I'm going to shift over to Chuck now, and she gave a wonderful story about your reaching out about a year ago. What was it that interested you about reparations and the work that Robin was doing that made you want to reach out?
Well, in the East, grew up outside Albany, New York, and having moved there from the Trenton area, and a very white circumstance. And I didn't really, encounter anything about race until I was an Army officer in Washington, D.C., in the late 60s. And it was civil rights time and Poor People's Campaign. And I was there when Dr. King was killed and when Bobby Kennedy was killed and all of that. When we moved here in '69, I didn't realize it at the time, but, and this is a shocking realization, is that Evanston at that time was just coming out of Jim Crow. Because we had, the Emerson Street branch of the Y, so a black branch of the YMCA. We had Foster School, black school, and we had community hospital, black hospital. 1969. There's not ancient history. And you roll the tape all the way forward, when Casey started working with us on our foundation, having been at YOU previously, she raised the question of, there's something going on here about reparations in Evanston. We got to find out more about it and get involved. Our foundation focuses on two things, basically, education and equity. So it just fits. So then I had known Robin a little bit, of other things around town, and Casey had known Robin through her work at YOU. So Casey brought it up, and we started investigating and starting to understand. And so we got deeply involved. I should say that typically, we like to philanthropically support both ideas and people. And we particularly like supporting black leaders. And so this fit perfectly.
Thank you, Chuck. I am amazed and absolutely appreciative of the collaboration that has come to exist over the past year, and especially with FirstRepair. Robin, can you tell us a little bit about the new organization that has begun working on reparations here in Evanston?
Absolutely. After I finished my term as alderman in May, I took about almost a month off, a few weeks for sure. I traveled to Guinea-Bissau, my ancestral home, and we fully launched FirstRepair, which is a not-for-profit that informs local reparations nationally. And there it has allowed me a platform, an opportunity, infrastructure, a space to continue developing local reparations initiatives and continuing supporting other municipalities and institutions and beginning to take their next steps towards reparations. And so there was a organic demand. There were unsolicited requests that began coming from all across the nation and even internationally as well, for me to come and speak to my experience in Evanston and inform on maybe best practices and a path forward. And FirstRepair is allowing us to continue supporting the nation really in thinking about municipal reparations initiatives.
Chuck and Robin, reparations has certainly become a watchword around the nation. And I know recently FirstRepair was a co-sponsor of a major national symposia that was held here in Evanston, drawing the attention of over 20 cities and towns around the country that are also interested in not necessarily trying to duplicate, but beginning their own reparations program. I'm wondering, because you all have so many years of dedicated service to the community and you know Evanston, how can the rest of the community become involved in this reparations effort? Not so much the city, not so much the foundation and FirstRepair, but I'm thinking about the NAACP. I'm thinking about banks and other financial institutions. I'm thinking about Northwestern just down the road, Garrett Seminary, District 65 and 202. This town is filled with so many nonprofit and for-profit organizations that I think have hearts of goodwill. What can you all do, or what can we do to help support and to continue and widen the work of reparations? Robin?
So this work really is a responsibility of the entire community of Evanston. Reparations is a process, and all community entities, leaders, stakeholder groups, communities are responsible to participate. And so in 2019, when I made the introduction, it was always doing what I was responsible to do as a Fifth Ward alderman, to make the introduction, lead within my purview, but it was really a nudge. It was a call to action to the other institutions, Northwestern, our healthcare systems, our philanthropic community, our business sectors, banks in particular. And so some of that work has begun already with financial institutions, and NAACP and your leadership, Dr. Nabors, has been incredible, and particularly your role in the interfaith community as well. And so we're seeing great progress, particularly in the interfaith community. Beth Emmett has been an incredible partner in reparations. And we're seeing some businesses that have begun to make some contributions to the reparations fund. In addition to that, our own community foundation, the Evanston Community Foundation, its leader, Saul Anderson, and the others have been incredible in launching and seeding the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Evanston and being very giving of their time as we support other cities. FirstRepair supports other cities in taking their first steps. The philanthropic partner is one of the keys to advancing a local reparations initiative. Evanston has modeled that at the Evanston Community Foundation, and they've been supporting now other cities and how they might support in the same way. But the way the whole community gets involved is first educate themselves on what reparations is and why, how it's different from ordinary public policy, why equity alone is not enough. And the history is available through Shorefront Legacy Center, so if there's any question, you can go there. And then begin to think about what participation might look like in a tangible way. Is it fundraising? In the case of Beth Emmett, they're beginning some of that work. It could be more education and outreach. It could be sharing your intellectual gifts and business acumens. In that case, we've had allies that have really contributed by sharing their networks, their professional networks, to build the reparations movement. But everyone should be participating in some way. And I think that it starts with education, and then it moves forward with some sort of tangible redress.
Thank you, Robin. That's a great to-do list, and I'm happy to hear that some of the folks in Evanston have already begun to work and to partner in the effort. So, Robin, as you know, I've been talking with some folks who are beginning reparations programs in their own communities, High Point, North Carolina, Princeton, New Jersey. What has come to my attention is that they have already built a partnership with institutions of higher education in their own communities. I know that the reparations program in Evanston is working with universities outside of Illinois, like Howard and Columbia. I'm wondering whether or not you might be looking at working with university partners that are closer to the area.
So in 2019, when I made the introduction, my assumption was that Northwestern would be our academic partner, that they would take lead on research and all things that they're experts in helping us build up the case for reparations and project the possibilities for repair. We are fortunate to have support from Howard and Columbia Law Schools through the African American Redress Network. And we are hopeful that with the incoming president at Northwestern, that we can begin a relationship with Northwestern and we could have a partnership, an academic partner in our own community. Northwestern is certainly capable and competent, but also responsible for redress in their own right and should be partnering with us, the City of Evanston and other institutions as we work towards repair.
Chuck, how about you? What do you see in the Evanston community in terms of how organizations and groups and individuals might be able to support the effort of reparations?
Yeah, I think that if it can't happen in Evanston, it can't happen anywhere. Just the nature of the city, which, by the way, going back to my earlier comment about the kind of still in Jim Crow when I arrived here in '69, that this was a very conservative place at that time, which Robin may have been. Well, you weren't alive. I was going to say Rob may remember, but it was a different place, and now it's a very liberal, progressive, whatever word you want to use, kind of place, and so this is ripe for it, ripe for this kind of change. And you bring two things together. You bring a leader who brings her lived experience to this, who is entrepreneurial by nature, very effective, and then you have the nature of the city currently, with its like the rest of the country, with its checkered history. So people think of Evanston being, this beacon of light, but you don't have to go back very far where it wasn't. So the conditions are just right here, and I think, I guess the other thing that I think about a lot is I'm a very big proponent of starting things locally, starting small, not what I call boiling the ocean. I mentioned earlier I went to Amherst College, and one of the notable people who went to Amherst College was Charles Hamilton Houston, who was Thurgood Marshall's mentor when he was dean of the law school at Howard, and they together crafted the school desegregation strategy, which started with doing things on a state basis. I was saying earlier that my elementary school outside of Trenton, and I think it was 1949, was integrated 5 years before Brown. And so that was evidence of the strategy of starting locally, starting small, and building from there. So we've got what's going on here, I think, can be really instrumental in spreading this kind of idea nationally.
So Chuck, I asked Robin about what the community of Evanston might be able to do to be supportive and helpful for reparations. I think I'd like to be bold enough to ask you the question, what do you think white people can do to be supportive and helpful with the reparations movement occurring here in Evanston?
Well, I don't know in any specificity what white people should do, but I think that we, first of all, I'm not an expert in all of the things that are required for true reparations, but I do know that one of them is acknowledgement, and I think we in town need to better understand the history of the place. As I mentioned earlier, when I moved here, it's a very different place. And I was unaware of that at the time, but 1969 was Evanston was not recognizable compared to what it is now. So I think people first have to acknowledge the fact that we have recent history where we've done harm. And then I think all of we white people have to find our individual ways of not only acknowledging that, but trying to do something to repair that.
Well, I think that you as a proponent of reparations, and Robin as not only a leader of reparations, but in my opinion, the face of reparations, both local initiatives and national. I think the very fact that you all have come together and created a partnership and a collaboration is exciting, but also potentially replicable for other communities around the nation. So I just want to say that I'm very, very grateful for your time and for your effort today, and being able to tell a story that needs to be told, but keeping in mind that it's just one story. Because now with reparations movements emerging from California to Georgia to North Carolina and so many other places, and even Amherst and Boston, we have an opportunity to see this story replicated in a way that's going to especially benefit all of those who have struggled out of the African diaspora here in the United States. So because of your leadership and because of your modeling what good leadership is about, I want to say thank you, and Evanston is all the better and moving much closer toward becoming a beloved community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.